Happy New Year, everyone. We may be in 2023, but New Year certainly did not bring a new Swindon, as a completely inept word used by some of the panelists in the WhatsApp chat, embarrassing, pathetic, and a lot more strong choice ones, which I'm sure you're going to hear tonight. We have got balance, though, as we also are joined by friend of the podcast, Si, to offer a Colchester perspective. A large panel all want to have their say this evening, and feel free. We love it when you get involved, obviously, in the live chat as well. I'm sure you have plenty to get off your chests. So join in the discussion. But before we say hello and good evening to everybody, let's roll the titles.
Take my hand, take my whole life too, but I can't help falling in love with you.
By welcoming the man back to the podcast. I believe he was our first ever guest, opposition guest, back in the early days of Fools Rush In. We're delighted to welcome him back. Good evening, Si. How are you, pal?
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for having me on. I'm glad we agreed this before the game. See tonight to come on again.
Yes, we certainly did. And it was a nice touch of you to check with me afterwards that you'd still be allowed on. I presume, obviously we'll talk about the game in a bit, but I presume you were very happy with the result in the end.
Oh, definitely. We'll take anything. The way it's going at the moment, we'll take any points from wherever we get them. And to be fair, it's one of those weird games where you couldn't really split who was where in the league. Obviously, you guys have been quite high up. So hopefully for us, it's a bit of a corner turn. Strong January, bring some players in, and hopefully we kick them up the league. It'll be in a more positive position next time we speak.
And did you have a nice Christmas and New Year?
Yeah, it was good, thank you. Yeah, it's nice and quiet with the family. Obviously, for me, I've always very much that Christmas is one of those days you have to get through to get to Boxing Day. But it's all about, obviously, the traditional fixtures.
No, absolutely. Well, I look forward to you bringing that balance and that positivity to what I'm almost certain is going to be a fairly negative episode. Someone else I'm absolutely delighted to welcome back. He's been missing. He's been doing late fitness tests and everything, but he's back. And it is Mark. Good evening, buddy.
Good evening, Fifey. How are you doing, sir? Good evening, sir.
I absolutely delighted because you're back.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you. I'm delighted to be here, and I just want to start with positivity and say Happy New Year to you both.
Thank you very much, and to you and the family. Next up, good evening, Joe, who I just flashed up the message there. I've been waiting for this show, says Joe. Next up, we've got the artist formerly known as Rich. Good evening, Matt.
That sounds so fucking weird. It sounded worse when it came from Ben. Happy New Year, boys. All good, thanks.
Take it in, everyone. This is about the intros is about as smiley as this is going to get. Rich looks so happy right now. Wait till his first question.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah. We'll wait and see, boys.
Next, let us say hello and good evening to the man that embodies positivity for the pod. Good evening, Craig.
I knew you was talking about me then, mate. Crikey. I mean, considering I'm the person who's normally the negative, more sort of contrary to the rest of the panel, I don't know what I'm going to do here if this is going to be an entirely negative panel. I'm bloody might as well not even bother.
You think the negativity is your niche, do you, pal?
It should be, yeah. I feel a bit, I feel a bit undermined, to be honest. But I'll tell you how bad it is. I've actually made notes, right? And
we don't do prep on this.
The last time I made notes was during the dying days of John Sheridan. So that's how fucking bad it's got. So,
wow,
yeah,
dear me.
It's going to be interesting, I think.
This looks very good in kind of Olympic setup, but we have more panelists that want to have their say. We have someone who is, what's the right turn of phrase? He's warmed himself up with a nice drink or two beforehand. Good evening, Woody.
Good evening. Not had that many drinks. I've one at the pub.
Just one, was it?
I will try to bring some ounce of positivity tonight, as long as we're not talking about Swindon Town Football Club.
If only this wasn't a pod about Swindon Town Football Club.
I'll tell you how positive I will be tonight. I also wrote notes, but got halfway through them and tore them up. I was that pissed off at it. I've got no prep, and I'm bringing no positivity, so I'm going to apologise to all my loving fans in advance.
Your loving fan. Just before I introduce the rest of the pod, can anyone hear a weird sort of background noise coming through?
Yeah.
And does anyone know?
It's just really farting.
That's how angry I am.
Mike said Craig is going to be the cheerful one tonight, except for Sai, who's bound to enjoy this. Yeah, normally when guests are on, and to be fair to Sai, he is one who sticks out for the distance of the episode. We normally say once they've had their bit, they're more than welcome to leave. I think Sai's just going to sit and listen to every single bit of this with a smile on his face. That's for sure.
Well, to be fair, I've been quite often been the positive one about Swindon, and all you guys have been negative. So maybe I can do this tonight again.
Woody has been to Ned's Barbers.
And even Ed fucked it up. It's overall positive day.
I think it's your AirPod or your earphones, Woody.
Fucking Apple. All right, I'll sort them out.
Thanks, mate. We have two more panelists yet before we get into the conversation. But before we do, Rob's been in touch already on Twitter. Thank you, Rob. Craig's got the notes out. This is going to be fucking amazing.
I think I've overplayed it a bit there. It's not going to be that amazing. But thanks, Rob.
Next, I hope he keeps it on while I introduce him, because in the lobby with a massive smile on his face. Good evening, Ned. How are you, pal?
You're mute.
You're muted, Ned.
Oh, that's the only positives that I was going to say, just when I was on mute. So there we go. Oh, Jesus, yeah. I'm not sure how long the smile's going to be on for. I've got a feeling it's going to disappear in about a minute and a half's time.
Mark's asking, does Scott Lindsay own the Barbers, Woody? Last but certainly not least, and we may yet be joined by more panelists throughout the night. Believe me, everyone wanted to have their say this evening, but we're delighted to say hello to Nick.
Yeah, hi Fifey, how you doing?
I'm very well, pal. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. Si said he thinks that they've turned the corner. We've turned that many fucking corners. We're going around in circles. So we'll see where we end up at the end of the night.
Well, it's certainly going to be an interesting discussion with you guys. That's sure. If our WhatsApp chat was anything to go by in the last 24 hours, this could be very entertaining. For me, asking the questions of Sai, just sitting and listening. Let's get straight into it then, and we will invite the guest to have his say first. 1-0 win. You always said you were happy with the result. What did you make of Colchester's performance?
To be fair, I thought we put in quite a positive professional performance. We had the first 25 minutes where it was very much attack from you guys versus defence from us. And to be brutally honest, in the stands, we always resigned the fact you guys were going to score eventually. If not by luck, if by judgment, whatever, however it's going to go in, the ball was going to go in. And then there's a stoppage in play 24 minutes in. Both managers got to have a chat to their teams. And Bloomford obviously said something of footballing sense, and Lindsay must have pissed off down the pub or something, because from 25 minutes onwards, we were attacking, wing back push higher, causing threats, and you guys just seemed to, well, turn into prime Colchester, really. It all went sort of downhill from there. I would like to say, I'm your goalkeeper. We really did keep you in, mate. He made some gleaming saves. We could be in sort of 4 or 5 up. So I know Harry made some decent saves for us, but yeah, if you had to pick a man of the match out of the 22 players on that pitch, your goalkeeper would have got it. He was just absolutely outstanding. I'm not sure if that's just because everyone else was that bad, he stood out, or if he generally is that good. It seems, from obviously seeing Swindon for a couple of seasons now, seeing where you are in the league, it looked like the wrong team had turned up. If you were to sit there and go, right, okay, one team's 6th in the league, one team's fighting relegation, you're going to pick, and I'm not just being biased at Colchester, you probably would have picked the other way around, how you guys are playing. That
Yep.
it's a shame to see as well, because the Twins have always been a club with good Premiership standards and stuff like that coming down. But yeah, I've seen some Sunday League teams turn up and play, better football at times than what you guys had. It's hard to put a finger on it because the players you've got are good enough. I've saying what Coach has been saying all season. We've got a good enough squad. We should be playing better. But it just seems that they're not even being led. They've just been sent out there without. Yeah, go on, lads. Who's the first 11? Turns out, right, you're on the pitch. Off you go. Enjoy yourselves. Here's the ball. So, yeah, I think your problem is in the management side of life and how your players have been utilised.
I mean, in our conversation yesterday, we both agreed it wasn't going to be a game that lived long in the memory. But pretty much what you said there summed up our conversation. You were suggesting that all Swindon need to improve as a manager that understands tactics. Was the sentence you sent to me?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, we had Haley Mullins. I wouldn't wish him on anybody, and it just seems you've managed to find his twin brother somehow.
To be fair,
I used to coach with his half brother, and he was questionable at times with some of his tactics as well.
So, yeah, it's kind of one of those situations where obviously when it's your team getting the points, it's fantastic. But then there is an element of knowing you guys and also coming on here, you're like, oh gosh, it's not fair on the fans that somehow that idiot's managed to make it into professional football. And obviously, I was going to say this before Ben comes on, because I know obviously Ben would be leaping to his defence and be very much on side with who he wants to be managing your side. But yeah, it's a tough one. I think if you're not careful, because teams around you will start picking up points and obviously games in hand they've got, it could be a very slippery slope for the second half of the season for you guys. I don't think you're in danger of going down or anything, but that playoffs could become a bit of a distant memory come March, April time.
Yep. Well, obviously, we invite you to jump in if at any point you don't feel we're giving Colchester the credit they deserve during the various topic choices that we've got tonight. The one thing I would say, and I'd said it to these guys, is the young lad, and forgive me, I can't remember his name. The young lad that you started with up top yesterday and played for about an hour or so.
Tavide, the number 34, yes.
Yeah.
Samson Tavide.
The one that came off for a Kinde. I said to these guys, I said, we're having absolutely zero service of any quality. He looks better than every forward we've got.
To be fair to him, he's been in and around the squad for a while. He's get more game time under Bloomfield. Normally play him and the Kinde together. There's a two up top. The Kinde will do the sort of muscle where Samson will do the running around for him. Because John's we played obviously the last 2 games, getting 3 games in like 7 days out of him is a little bit too much for his body. So hence why we started to be there up top on his own. But he's a sort of player, you can put the pitch and we'll just run and run and run, just chase half lost causes. And yeah, it's definitely one for the future. He's one that if we do stay up and he plays well for a season, we will probably end up losing in the summer.
Okay. Let's talk about our alternative then, Woody. Saj just said about run and run and run. Me and you were discussing yesterday Jeff Cott's running, and I described it as shuttle runs from halfway to the penalty area and back.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I guess to quickly summarise, the first 35 minutes of that game, the only thing that was missing was the Benny Hill theme tune, I think. It was shocking from both sides, to be honest, the first 35 minutes. But yeah, Jeff Cott, I wanted him to do so well. I was one of those I was similar to Ben. I thought this is going to be a player that we needed. We needed somebody who was going to come in and, help the likes of Wakelin, Adeloy at the time and things like that to kind of learn their trade, although he's only 22 himself. But I know... And I picked up on it straight away. I can't remember who said it in our chat, lads, because we were all really pissed off yesterday. But people were saying like Jeff Cott's not getting the service. His runs were non-existent. He didn't approach the edge of the 18-yard box once for the first 10 minutes. He went missing for the majority of the time. And I would say the same about our front three. When you're playing a forward three like that, the redundant winger, the one not being used, becomes a forward. The idea is they can become a second striker, and we didn't have that. Nobody was encroaching the box, and Jeff got, for me, I don't know. I didn't know enough about it. I only ever saw his stats come in, but Plymouth I think they said to us, you're not going to get any running out of him. Now, both Nick and I kind of thought, for the first few games, he was the complete opposite. He was an absolute workhorse. He was doing almost as much work as Wakelin, if anything. But that now it seems that someone said to him, go out there and play like a striker. The work rate's gone, and I think Saya, how old are your centre backs? 37 and 32.
Yeah,
I know he hasn't.
about to say that if you're not running against the three of our centre backs, we've got a combined age about 174.
Exactly. So
wrong.
I'm just thinking he doesn't need to be the quickest striker in the world, to be up against a 37 and a 32 maybe, but definitely up against a 37-year-old. And I thought his movement was non-existent yesterday. I genuinely thought that, okay, we didn't create a lot, but strikers don't just go into the area and then the ball gets delivered to them. They have to make runs. You teach strikers all the time in football. When you're doing your coaching sessions, Rich will say the same, Mark will say the same. You need to make, whether it's however you play your striker, you need to make an L-shaped run. You need to do a diagonal run. You need to reverse mark. You need to do all of this kind of stuff. I didn't see any of that from Jeffcott. All I saw him was jumping between the two centre backs. Never at one point was he balancing them both. Now, is that a result of the two wingers? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But that's what I saw yesterday. Like I thought that every time Williams moved forward with the ball, Jeffcott was nowhere to be seen, or he was behind him. A bit like what we criticised Harry Kane for doing too much of, was a bit like what Jeffcott was doing yesterday, but doing it really badly. And that's why we went. And so whilst service is a big problem, it's not all down to the service, because the strikers, and this is where Charlie Austin will make a difference, is because he's been in the game long enough. He's going to be telling those midfielders where he wants that ball to be played. And I think, we talk about he's going to be up against lump it and dump it defenders, but at the end of the day, he's smart enough. He's played at higher levels where he's going to make a much more of a difference. I think I'm one of those that actually wouldn't be surprised if we see 15 plus goals. But Jeffcott, I'm sorry, I wouldn't be fussed if we sent him back in January, or if he got recalled. Genuinely wouldn't be fussed.
Well, Nick,
I think Jory, to back in there, you have to go back to distribution. Even when you are distributing the ball in the box, it's so mirrored every time. Every time you had a corner or a wide ball, it would always go to the far post, and your player would fail to jump for it. It's so easy to defend against, even when you can pick it up inside from a fan's point of view. If this is getting coached, then obviously, well, I'll let you guys decide that.
Nick, you got reference there, so do you want to have your say on Jeffcott's performance?
I think Woody summed it up pretty well. It's the two things, isn't it? It's what he said. If you don't make the runs and make the space for someone to get the ball to you, you're not going to get it. And Si's point there about our crossing, Hutton hit virtually every cross to outside the other side of the penalty area. His crossing was absolutely abysmal. And Devinier went down the left that many times, but cut back in every time, and then still didn't get a decent cross in. So he was poor.
Doesn't have a left foot.
He doesn't. No, he doesn't have a left foot. The front three didn't work as a unit. Again, Wood is right. If it, depending on what side the ball's on, the winger or the front man on the other side comes in to sit alongside the centre forward. I mean, that didn't happen at all. And it was poor all the way through. We know what the problem is. We're not scoring enough goals. Since Mansfield, I think we've had 9 games and scored 5 goals. We cannot continue.
Used too many in that game, did we, Nick? We scored too many in that game.
Well, probably. But we played 2 up front. And we haven't done it since. We scored, play 2 up front, we score 5 goals.
Yeah. It's a valid point.
Things have got to change. And if Charlie Austin can make things happen, but he can't do it on his own. And I think the whole setup and the way we're coached in how many coaches we got on the bench going mental throughout the game, I'm sure that can't do a lot of good either. So changes need to happen. And I'll hold my hands up. At the start, I was a Lindsay supporter. I said, that's probably a good appointment. But we've been, as I said, going around in circles, win one, lose one, win one, lose one, play well, play crap, play well, play crap. that's the problem. I think somebody made the point saying about too many youngsters. Well, if you go through that team, there is a lot of experience in that team, so you can't use that as an excuse.
Nick, you stole my point I wanted to make later.
sorry, Woody. So so that's where I see it. I'll leave it there because there's so much to say that we all need a chance to have a little gripe.
Okay, well, I want to come into Rich next because something I think me and you agree on, and I think Woody does as well. Both Woody and Nick have mentioned it, is width from wingers. Woody used the phrase, when attacking, the redundant winger becomes a second striker. I think wingers in general are redundant in our team because they don't play as wingers.
Well, I mean, I said this probably since November, maybe even October, that we are lacking half-decent wingers. I mean, we probably had our chance in the summer to sign like an experienced wing player if that was the formation or the way that we were going to go. It doesn't really matter how we were going to set up. We were always going to have some wide players. And eventually for Lindsay, he finally did have a backup plan and he was going to play 4-3-3. The problem is though, we didn't have the players to fit the 3-5-2. Now we haven't got the players to fit the 4-3-3. Like, do you know what I mean? I mean, the only thing that's really worked for us is the diamond formation because that does work for us. We've got Gladwin, Darcy, Khan, Reed. Do you know what I mean? That actually works.
On that, though, and the point that was made earlier on Lower League Look, it worked really, really well at Mansfield. But did we not play that? It didn't work at Stockport.
Stockport. And
so it needs to be adaptable to the opposition.
Absolutely. And this is where I think Lindsay needs to sort of change it up a little bit because he needs to do his research on the team, how they play their football. And if the diamond formation is the one that works, great. I understand that don't change a winning team. And in some aspects, don't. But also, I just think, but going back to the players, going back to the question, I absolutely lost to a shade yesterday. Genuinely, he was like Bambi on legs. Like seriously, I mean, he was. I think somebody was starting to sing the song on Thursday night. One of us was. He's here. He's there. He's every fucking where. Tyree Shade. Do you know what? He genuinely was though. That's the thing, but not in a good way. Like he was on the left-hand side where he should have been on the right-hand side. And it's not as if the two wingers bloody switched positions. Johnny Williams was still on the left-hand side, which left the right-hand side bloody free. And when Tyree Shade was given the opportunity, the ball was flicked over. It was like a slow-motion chip. Number one couldn't even stay on side. And number two fucking took 2 steps back to volley it then over the net. If you put your back that much into it and take 2 steps back and you're stretching for it. I know he's a tall bloke, but genuinely enough, that is not going to get that ball on target. It was a scuffed shot and everything like that. And then 2 minutes later, he has another shot, which he blasts straight wide. Oh my God, what does Lindsay do? Now, this is where I don't quite understand who is actually picking this team. Because unless there's some kind of stat that is keeping Tyree Shade in that team week in, week out, which there must be, but I'm yet to fucking see it because it's only the last couple of games where he's actually been making some actually decent runs.
Let me see if I can help you out with that one, Rich, because Woody was very partially happy with Shade yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Go on, Woody.
Only on his defensive work for the first 40 minutes. It sounds like for a minute. Look, I want to be clear here that I don't think this should be a Shade bashing because at the end of the day, yesterday everybody was atrocious.
I get that.
Even Bryn that we all sing in glory and we all claim that he keeps us in. He's the reason we are where we are, which I don't believe for a second. But it's He was dropping the ball at stupid moments yesterday, and there was a couple of misplaced passes out from the back. My opinion is not going to change on Shade. It never will do. I'm not going to use him as a scapegoat for yesterday's performance because, like I say, all of them were rubbish yesterday. But he is not good enough. I don't care what anybody says. I don't even care what the stats say. He's just not good enough. He's not the style. He's not what we need. He doesn't suit the way that we even want to look like we're playing. And I just want to come back to this. And this is, I'm going to sound like Ben here. This is going to really irritate me. We played 4-diamond-2 against Stockport, right? And we said, oh, it didn't work, even though we beat Mansfield. Let's take another look at that lineup that played against Stockport. Brennan, Bowdry, Hutton, Darcy, Yandelo, Reed, Khan, Williams, Jeffcott, Wakelin. Okay, so the midfield four that we have all put into ours, only 2 of them were in that lineup against Stockport. So I get annoyed at this. We can't do it because we did it against Stockport and we lost 4-0. Well, we won 5-2 and then we lost 4-0. It doesn't, the personnel was the issue. I think Reed was playing attacking midfield.
He was.
Or something, when he against Stockport. The personnel was the issue there. That comes down to Scott Lindsay. But either way, yeah. Shade yesterday, to be fair, for the first half, second half, I think I was just seeing red all the way through for every single player. He, defensively, he was playing like a wing back, but we weren't playing a wing back system.
No, that's right.
And that's what I was trying to say, that we, he defensively, he probably won the ball more times than Hutton did yesterday, I reckon, if we got the stats
To be
back.
fair, though, he has played like that all season because he gets the ball on halfway line and he doesn't fucking run. He just passes the ball straight back. So,
but what makes me laugh, you know that area between like the edge of the 18-yard box and the byline and the goal kick line, right? He's never in that area, and the first thing I'm expecting a winger to do is drive towards that direction. He doesn't. I'm sorry. The majority of the time, he picks the ball up, gets to the edge area, turns back inside. He's a right back. Left back. He's a left back's absolute dream. If I'm a left back, that's exactly where I want him to be.
Position.
Yeah.
Just don't get it.
But no, he's not the reason we lost yesterday. I want to make that clear. I don't want it to be a shade bashing session. But
don't worry, I'm sure
But Fifey, just going back to your point about the whole wingers anyway, like this was our whole recruitment process that should have been like ideal in January. I mean, we signed Shade and then we signed Morgan Roberts. I mean, no disrespect to the kid, but he came from Banbury. And
Charlie
he hasn't
Austin
had an
Paul.
But what I mean is he hasn't had the experience. He's about 5'2". He's more of a Jermaine McGlashan at the moment than we have any other wingers, to be quite honest with you.
Playing computer games.
I don't know. Is that what he does? I have no idea. But my point is we need to bring in experienced league wingers in this January transfer window. And if we don't get that, just forget it. Just forget this season. Because it doesn't matter who we bring in, whether or not we sack Scott Lindsay or not, that is not going to change. We need wingers, full stop.
Where's Lloyd Isgrove nowadays?
No, Bolton, I believe.
On the subject of wingers, Mark, I'm going to come to you in just a second, but tweet in from Paddy at Fools Rushing. Good evening, comrades. We are pinching a win here and there, but the football in general is terrible. D. McKaylee and his stats fest need to go. Lindsay's not doing what he promised when he won the lotto in getting a manager's job. All very fair points, and Happy New Year to you as well, sir. We mentioned Shade there, Mark, but let's have a look on the other side. Lavinier briefly been mentioned. We are crying out, and I appreciate Iandolo is, but he's not playing in that position at the minute. We are crying out for an actual left footer to play on the left, aren't we?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously, Harries could come in and do a job at centre-back and allow FBT to move back out to the left where he was most effective earlier in the season. No disrespect to FBT, he's been doing an absolute sterling job in fitting in at centre-back. And is arguably up there with Bryn as our, as two of our best players this season. But it's a bigger problem to fill, and it goes beyond those two players. I genuinely think, from a team perspective, we don't have a leader out on the pitch. I'm going to start my Angus MacDonald argument now, in as much as he should be in the bin. He's absolutely not captain material. He doesn't lead from the back. He's quieter than Conroy, and that is saying something. The guy never opens his mouth to shout and organise his line. Bryn is not a commanding goalkeeper in terms of vocal ability. He's quite, within himself, although, it's just incredibly frustrating. I just don't think we have enough leadership in the team. Gladwin is as close as we get to it, and he didn't pull any punches after the game yesterday, and I've got to commend him for that. I think he's 100% right, but there's nobody out on the pitch that's telling them to pull their socks up and drag them back into a game. Austin will be one of those players
I
up
was going
top.
to say.
He is incredibly vocal, and they better look shipshape because, we've seen some of his behind-the-scenes rants at Brisbane and the such like, and he's been like that his whole career.
Forget that. I'm looking forward to his rants about the officials a la Southampton.
He's going to have a field day in League Two. That's a whole separate conversation. But I just want to just wind back a little bit and just talk about the actual games that were chalk and cheese. Now, Northampton, was probably, and I genuinely thought we were going to get tonked at Northampton after the way we played against Walsall. I don't think anyone here is going to disagree with that. The fact is, though, no, fair point. Yeah, but you're always positive when you go to games, Five here. I genuinely think we had a game plan during that game. The players looked to have, some sort of responsibility and accountability for their positions. When we were defending out the game, particularly in the second half, it was quite sensible to have a low block, bearing in mind they played a game 3 days before, and we actually executed that incredibly well. We actually stopped Northampton getting as much space, as perhaps they would have enjoyed. And I thought, actually, we actually looked like a football team again. I think, genuinely, if you look at watch the highlights back from the Colchester game, I don't think we bothered scouting Colchester. I don't think anyone took the time of day and just thought they're down the bottom. With all, not being, disrespectful, but I think we haven't done a proper job and said, okay, well, this is what we could have done and this is what we should do against this side. We weren't that convincing against you in the home match, to be fair. And then, arguably, I thought, and I saw a comment earlier about the substitutions during the game yesterday, somebody saying we didn't get those right. I genuinely thought they were good substitutions. We brought on our pace players. Okay, what we didn't do was change the system of play to match up to the pace of RHM and Wakeling and so on. We played the same system, and I thought this just doesn't make sense. Why not move two up top against, again, a Dad's Army centre back pairing with two younger players that should be able to pull those, create space for the midfielders, and it just didn't happen. And to be fair, as soon as Akindi came on the pitch, anyway, I genuinely thought we were going to go 2-0 down because the way we were playing yesterday, he's always handy for a goal, and just like my heart sank a little bit, thinking we ain't getting back in this game now. He's on the pitch, simple as that. But yeah, going back to what you were saying, or what we were saying originally about the leadership in the team, it's a big problem for me. We just don't have anybody in the side that's capable of pulling the team round and giving them a kick up the backside at the moment. And I hope we add to the signing of Austin to change that.
Well, speaking of signings, Si, just a question for you. Let's not pretend this is from Jack, and it's absolutely from Ben, trying to hide from his bosses who might be watching. But he's already wasted too much time on lower league looks, so if they're going to sack him for this, he'll do it anyway. DJ, though, obviously a winger we know very well, could be on his way to ColU. Have you heard anything about this? So this is Joe Simi, obviously.
Yeah, so we've been linked to him, but at the moment we seem to be linking with any wide attacking-minded player. So it's kind of a bit of the links there. And it's potential, like we're getting linked with Kemp as well from Milton Keynes, but I think I've learned the hard way, especially with Tom Nichols, who won't be coming into us. Was pretty much almost, according to some rumours, guaranteed signing. Now he's gone to Gillingham. So I take a lot of this sort of stuff with a pinch of salt. He'd fit in, don't get it wrong. But yeah,
I'd take DJ back here any day. I'd take him back any day.
And that is the thing. He's a player that would improve our squad.
Oh, massively.
100%.
But I don't know how true the actual rumours are, because it's this time of year where you get linked to everyone, and then we normally wait until like the 29th of January and sign someone from on loan who's injured from a non-league side that never gets played. So I've sort of learned the hard way not to go back and go back to what you guys said about how you have a system or change a system. It looked like you rocked up with plan A. That didn't work, and it's like, right, what we'll go do now is we'll go from plan A to no plan. If they don't know what we're doing, we don't know what we're doing. No one knows what we're doing. They can't defend against it, so maybe it will work. I agree when you say about your substitutions. Yeah, the pace came on. We hadn't made any substitutions at that point. So they had a good 10 minutes of fresh legs running against aging defenders and a tiring team. But yet nothing changed. And it was easy. Our wing backs just dropped back in, made it a back five. It just offered nothing. Where actually adding the extra player forward, matching up the wing backs with that pace, you would have got more options, or probably would have forced mistakes out of Ahara because of how he's been with his confidence. And you go back to the scouting, obviously. If you just scouted us against Wimbledon, all you know is long range shots, we'll get spilled, follow the ball into the box. You won't, you shoot it, and then we'll just stop. And
I think we played into your hands as well, though, Si, to be perfectly honest, because I think your players realised that actually Plan A was shit as far as we were concerned. You had the better of it, and you realised quite quickly we weren't going to change Plan A. And then your kind of like attacking mojo came about a bit more, and you looked the more lively of the teams, and perhaps should have gone on and scored a couple more if it hadn't been for the goalkeeper.
We set up very much, although we were playing a 3 with the wing backs, we pretty much set up a flat 5 to start with, because we were scared, obviously, with your front 3 of conceding, especially about 3 centre backs being older. Then as the game went on, obviously Bloomfield's got hold of them, like drinks break, being like, right, they're not attacking you, they're giving space, exploit it, and they went, okay, shackles are off we go. And yeah, no, I completely agree with what you guys are saying about when you're watching it from an opposition point of view. There's so many things that 1 or 2 slight tweaks could have actually really put us against the cosh that were just overlooked. And
I think
the same when they do about it, the fans are telling you, all crying out what's to go on and what's happened. It's like, why can't the people that are making decisions, we're meant to be the experts and get paid for this, see the same thing?
I think if we had scouted your game against Wimbledon, we probably would have just realised what a stupid mistake it was not trying to sign Josh Davison in the summer, to be totally honest. So who, like, regardless of people's thoughts on him, is exactly what we probably need in the side at the moment. But
well,
that's all I'm going to say on Josh Davison tonight.
We've had a couple of messages in relation to some of the things that have said. Paddy's very involved at the minute, so he's put, if we persist with Di Michele, persist with Lindsay and this boring, clueless football, Charlie Austin won't see out his 6-month contract. Totally agree with Matt, formerly known as Rich, on the subject of wingers. He also says 100% agree with Mark. Charlie will be vocal, and if it upsets the apple cart, so be it. I don't think there are enough standards under this coaching setup, not professional enough. I think if things are slack, Austin won't accept that and will say so. And we've had another question in for you, Si. Are your days of raiding Ipswich over?
Well, the problem we're having with the Ipswich raids at the moment is they've got quite a young squad. So we've probably got another 5 or 6 years, so they fall into the age gap in the category where we decide to come off on a 3-year contract on stupid money. To be honest, though, I'm a massive fan of Carl Scouse. I think that bloke is so underrated. Yes, he's not fancy. He's one of the slower players, but he commands in front of the back line. He does the basics well, and he's very combative. He came from Ipswich. So Chambers, I got all the time. He came from Ipswich. Smith's come back. He's from Ipswich. I think if we've got these players from anywhere else, they wouldn't be guessing the grief and stuff they're guessing at times, just because of the Ipswich connection. It makes it worse. And then obviously, as soon as you start mentioning Ipswich, it's, oh, you're the Ipswich from retirement home. As I remember, we did that so your Christmas episode or whatever we had to do the defend the indefensible. Yeah, it shouldn't be, it should be Ipswich Beach, Ipswich retirement home, just combine it into one club sort of thing. But at times it does feel that's the joke amongst rival supporters. And it's hard to screw with because obviously we do it. But at the same time, the players that we do bring in from Ipswich at times aren't as bad as potentially they're labelled because they're tarred with the Ipswich brush. So yeah, once some of the players get another sort of 10, 15 years older, they'll be straight on the bus down to us.
Craig, one for you here. Another one in from Paddy on Twitter. The club's Twitter wished the great Steve White a happy birthday today. Can you imagine Chalky, Quinn, Bamba and Shearer, etc. playing under these coaches? Their goal records would have been blown to bits.
Christ, yeah. I wouldn't want to imagine because that would just ruin my memory of Shearer and Chalky. And I mean, Bamba was a bit before my the time I was supporting them, but yeah, Christ. I mean, the whole coaching setup. We mentioned it earlier on in the season where you got 4 or 5 of them all shouting on the pitch at the same time, including Lindsay, and it's like somebody mentioned on Twitter, it's like they're being overcoached, and and I'm sure Woody would probably agree. It's how is that? You need one person shouting the odds, maybe 2, if it's a specialist one like the goalkeeping coach. Say Mildenhall needs to shout something to the goalkeeper or something like that. But every time we saw it at Northampton, even though we did well there, there's 4 or 5 of them shouting at the same time. To be honest, they seem like a bunch of amateurs. They really do seem like a bunch of amateurs. The coaching setup. Maybe I'm being harsh. I'm not in that. I don't know anything about coaching, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I know fuck all as usual, but it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look good, and especially when you have a defeat like we did yesterday, and they're still doing exactly the same. It's like, how are the players supposed to do what they're supposed to do tactically and being coached from the side when you've got 4 or 5 different voices shouting at them? So yeah, I think Shearer, White, and Bamber can sleep soundly at night that they never had to deal with those idiots. But can I just go back to Jeffcott? To be fair to him, I did see him run a few times, but it was with the ball towards our own half when he was playing it back to the defenders. But yeah, it's not looking good, and I just think that. Our performance yesterday, we say about, we were lacking wingers. It all goes back to the recruitment at the beginning of the season. I know we're going to go on to Dean McKelly probably later, but clearly we were recruiting for 3 at the back to play this 3-5-2 formation. And we didn't have, I hate saying plan B, but we didn't have a plan B for it. And that's the problem. That's why we haven't got any wingers. We got wing backs, but we haven't got any wingers. And that will also explain, going back to Mark's point about McDonald, that's the only reason why we signed McDonald, apparently, so that we had at least one non-ball playing centre-back in the three centre-backs. I still cannot, for the life of me, understand why we brought a centre-back who is no good with the ball at his feet, like McDonald. He's done it so many times. He nearly gave a goal away against Northampton, and that could have totally changed that game. So the recruitment is just a fucking joke, to be honest. But sorry, I'll go into that a bit later before I get on my soapbox. Sorry.
Woody, should me or you text Wazza and tell him not to watch this back, because that's Mark and Craig got in on McDonald there.
Well, to be fair though, McDonald wasn't the worst player yesterday, but that's not saying much because they were all shit.
I have got another one for you though, Craig, because we're still talking about sort of the attacking setup generally to our team. There were 2 penalty appeals. Do you feel either of them were penalties?
I saw the Hepburn Murphy one. I missed the other one. I still wasn't sure, and I asked in the group chat, and people weren't too sure. It looked like one of those where if you was giving it, you weren't surprised. If you're not giving it, you're not too fast. So, but as Lindsay said in his post-match press conference, that doesn't matter. We just weren't good enough yesterday. So I think that the penalty thing's not really that important, to be honest. That just would have papered over the cracks, really.
Okay, Ned, come to you. One more at the top end. I'm sure we'll discuss a lot more about what Lindsay said in his post-match, because I, for one, was very critical of the comments. But one thing he was asked was, if Austin was available, is that a different game? And he said, yes, absolutely. Now, we've seen a few comments be flashed up already. People asking about Charlie Austin. Do we think there's a rift, etc., etc.? But the crux of it is, in your opinion, would it have been a different game? And does he make all the difference to this current team?
I mean, would have more goal threat. However, I mean, let's be completely honest. The way we're playing at the moment, it doesn't matter who we've got up top. It doesn't matter, because we're not creating enough chances. We might be getting entries into the box or something, but we're not creating clear-cut chances. And we're saying about the wingers. If we could have flipping Cafu and Ashley Cole on the left and right, but we've never got enough people in the box. So it's absolutely irrelevant, who's out wide, unless we're going to have, some 6'5" person who, runs as much as Wakeling does. We're not going to score any flipping goals in open play, and if we do, it'll be a lucky shot from outside the box, or it's just awful, and there's only one person to blame for that, and that's Scott Lindsay. I know that I don't have the same opinion on a lot of the players in the squad than some others do, but I genuinely feel that this team is good enough. It's just the tactics are fucking shit, and I'm sorry, there's no other way of saying it.
We put the warning out beforehand. I'm just surprised it's taken till now for some properly. If that's as bad as it gets, we've done well.
I mean, let's try and attack. Do you know what I mean? Let's try and score a few goals. I mean, when we do try and attack, we do get the players in the box, we score goals. So why can't we just, I mean, when you think about it, when we got our, we effectively we got two players out wide, haven't we? Whenever we go forward, on either side. So supposedly, it's just, for me, that's, I mean, it's if we shouldn't have two wide players on each side. I mean, that's fucking stupid as far as I'm concerned. I'm not a coach like Woody or like Mark or Matt. But it's just, for me, if you've got wing backs, I'd rather have more. Maybe I'd rather have two in the box at least, and then I'd have my attack, my midfielders who would sort of, go into the box when it's out wide. But I'm no coach, but as I said, we could sign up some quality wingers, and if we've only got one striker to aim for in the box against two or possibly three centre backs, we're not going to score any goals. It's just rubbish. And I was asking myself, that I'm not sure if you saw in the WhatsApp chat, but I had a power cut, so I unfortunately didn't get to see quite a bit of the second half. But and I didn't hear Lindsay's aftermatch rant, which I would have loved to have heard, because there's no excuses. I'm just flabbergasted. But the one thing I heard from Andrew Horse was remarkably inept at dealing with the ball through the middle. The long ball through the middle.
Yep.
That's not forgivable. That's not forgivable in any level of professional football. You said it in the WhatsApp group as well. Our formation that we play, we might as well not bother having a flipping striker up front.
I did.
We might as well
have an extra,
yeah. Might as well have an extra, have a number 10 in there.
False nines.
But it's just one of those ones. And, I really would love Scott Lindsay to do well, but we've given him a poison chalice, because a lot of the fans were saying the cheap option, blah blah blah. It's not the cheap option, but it's his first job, as like the head of the team, the head coach stroke manager. Should never have put him in that position. It should have been someone who motivates players, someone, with a bit of experience. With our team, if we had someone the equivalent of Steve Evans, would we be nearer the top? We absolutely would be.
Yes.
We absolutely would be. So it's just, if we have got any inclination to try and get into the playoffs or get promoted, we need to get someone else in. And I'm not, it's no sort of
sorry to interrupt, Ned, but if we had someone like Steve Evans, it would be a totally different recruitment game as well. We wouldn't have recruited the players we've got now. He wouldn't get much better out of these players, I don't think, but we'd have definitely recruited a lot better.
Don't take what I'm saying wrong. I'm not saying that we should, his style of football. I'm just saying someone who's, who's got a lot of character, who can bring the best out of players, who's got an idea, someone who's been around the block, not completely, not, bring an old person in, but just, someone who's been around the game in that position for, at least a good few seasons, 4 or 5 seasons. That's the kind of the person that we need in charge. But, it is what it is. But, we're not going to.
Fifey, can I just pick on something that Ned said?
Of course.
I said about us not attacking, and I was thinking about the Northampton game. And obviously we got the result there and everybody was buoyed by that. But if you think about that game, we defended well. Christ, was it that?
Carry on.
That's right, I can't with that on. Sorry, it puts me off. I like Rich, that put me off. We obviously defended well and we battled. But what did we actually achieve attack wise? We had Shade cutting from the wing, ran at their defence, which is what we're saying, we should be doing, pushing them back, laid it off to Williams, got the rebound and scored. And we got a worldie from Lavinia. Apart from that, we didn't create anything. And it was a rear guard battle. And so we were battling against a team above us in the league, which is what you would expect teams to do. Like Colchester did, they battled against us because we were above them in the league and they needed to get some out of that game. And I think those 2 games, you can sum it up like that. And we haven't created anything for I'll go back to it. Since Mansfield, we've hardly created a decent chance. And that's the problem. We play one up front with no service and the guy's restricted with 2-3 centre halves against him.
So I just want to take the opportunity because we've got loads of comments flying in. I just want to make sure they're all getting the recognition and time they deserve. Paddy he's agreeing a lot tonight. I agree with Si about Cole Skuse. Was always steady at Bristol City as well as Ipswich. And then he goes on to say, when Lindsay says post-match to Andrew Hawes, we need some kind of movement and we've just got to sort of keep playing it around the box. Is he for real? How the hell does he inspire and lead a team? It's Mike Bassett stuff. That's all come through on Twitter. As expected, Liam's joined us. First of all, he asked, does the M in PCM stand for mid?
Yeah.
That's a long-running joke. Also, good evening to Liv, who very much enjoys the Salford Boys when we're on her telly of an evening. Si, can you please take the Christmas decorations down? It's January.
I'm not allowed to do stuff like that. I'm married. I don't get to say anything like that.
What else have we had? Mark said it's okay because David beat Goliath, therefore the Borrowers will get past the Giants. Mike said he's no coach, but why don't we shoot a goal occasionally? Liam came back on again. Don't worry, guys. We lost 1-0 Colchester 2, and we're the best team in the league. Says what? 9th or 10th place, Bradford? And then, are you sure you're not a coach, Mike? That sounds something a coach would say. Inexperienced coaches. Woody, your thoughts on this one? Inexperienced coaches need a couple type with them.
I really, really struggle with this. We need to bring in an experienced manager argument. It's not that I disagree or agree, but if we look back at the experienced coaches we've brought in, Phil Brown probably being the most recent, and then we look at Flitcroft, but Flitcroft had a good win rate. Sheridan, Flitcroft had a good win rate. To be fair to him, he knew how to win games. But I do struggle. I mean, Copper would be brilliant. I've never, as much as he hangs around all of our enemies, I've never really not liked the guy. But I think I do agree with Craig. It seems that, and I try to be like, as a coach myself, and I know Rich will be the same. Pretty sure I liked his tweet saying that. But yeah, but then you look at like the inexperienced managers we've had. Richie Wellens was arguably inexperienced. Whether we like him or not, Garner was inexperienced, but he did all right with us. He didn't do brilliant, but he did all right. Paolo Di Canio, and people will say, yeah, but he's had coaching of the highest quality, blah, 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 blah. But yeah. Hoddle, a massive example. And our model has always been kind of taking those kind of inexperience. And I don't think, to be honest with you, based on the fact that we're a stats approach, this kind of stats-driven approach is a new thing. and it is only really being kind of driven into kind of your up and coming young coaches now. So I don't. I think whilst Dee McKaylee's in there, I can't see us getting in an experienced manager of that model, which is why I always said to Ben when he was like Lindsay out. That's why I'm so on the. Well, I'm not really on the offence about it now, but that's why I was always so on the fence about it, because we're not going to get in this glorious manager who's going to come in and save the day. We're going to get in another person who is, rightly so, like Lindsay. I don't want to put disrespect on him because he's obviously worked really hard to do, to get where he is, and he finally had his big break. And in the grand scheme of things, he's not doing massively bad. He's not what we want. He's not the expectations that we want. So yeah, but I just think, and this is where I struggle with the experience argument, because I don't think we'll get anybody I don't think we're going to get a Steve Evans. We're not going to get a Flitcroft again, or like that. It's not going to happen. So that's the reason that it's really holding me back from shouting. I don't shout Lindsay out anyway, but that's one thing, because I just don't think there's anybody else.
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm completely with you, Woody, honestly, until actually I saw something today and I completely forgot this guy is out of work at the moment, is Liam Manning. I personally think he would be a perfect fit. But like you, I'm not the one that's like screaming Lindsay out. The only way, and I think Lindsay is going to go, is A, if he's lost the dressing room, and B, if Clem actually has some balls to actually sack a manager, because we haven't seen that from him yet. He hasn't been in the position where he's had to sack a manager. So it'll be very interesting to see what kind of circumstances it will take for Clem to actually sack a manager. But I'm firmly, and I will completely back what I've said. I think Lindsay's here I think he's here until at least the end of the season. And whether or not we're finishing 13th place, 14th place, or if we finish in the playoff positions, nothing is going to. I don't think anything. Oh God, jeez. I honestly don't think anything is going to change. But again, like I say, only unless he has lost the dressing room, and I do personally think he has done, given by what he said in this post-match, and what Ben Gladwin said as well. But it's I think it's definitely a wait and see game.
Go on, Si.
Yeah, just sort of put two points on there. The first one, obviously, with Nick saying we were battling against sides above us. Everyone's above us, so we're just battling just to turn up in football matches is a plus point for us. But going back to the stats-based stuff, I think there's so many statistics in football now that they're becoming overwhelming, and not enough people are actually able to take the statistics and turn them into anything useful. So you've got a statistics-based setup, fantastic, yeah, but you might have a player that does X amount of completed passes. How many passes are sideways? How many passes lead goal score opportunities? At what point do people get into the weeds of the statistics to then influence the selections? Or is it a case of, oh, look, that player's done X amount of passes. We've got to start in. He's more ball playing midfielder. But actually, he goes sideways. Whereas the guy who's played 10 passes forward, 3 of which have led to a goal, the other 7 haven't done anything, looks bad statistically, is actually the better player. And I think that's where the young coaches need to find a happy medium, because statistics can prove anything you want them to. And it's how they use is where it needs to be refined.
Well,
I think
I was going to say this is very interesting though, because it's actually funny what Sandro Di Michele said in our docu-series or whatever it was. I'll read it out, because there's a chance that we might not get the results we like, but we have to keep playing football the right way, because that showcases talent in the best way possible. It's important that we play the right way so that we can showcase talent. Doesn't matter on our results or our league position.
See, I think, and this is the problem with it. I mean, I was for the stats approach, and I know a couple of the other guys were. But the problem is we're trying too much, and Sandro Di Michele is trying too much to make this like a Brentford model. We're not like a Brentford model because we don't have a B team. If we had a B team, I'd be all, because if you look at Brentford, no way is most of that squad that took them through the league's been signed on stats approach. Their B team, however, there's a lot of good players in there that are based on just stats, but there's a reason why they don't make it into the pro game. Stats don't drive mentality. So stats drive technique. And I think that's part of the problem that we that we've constantly got. And I think I saw somebody, I've lost the comment now, but it's just we
That's the
need
one.
to.
That for me would change everything.
Oh yeah, 100%. I would love the Cowleys, well, Danny Cowley. Yeah, I just think that I think we're using that as an excuse that we're trying to play football the right way because we're not seeing it being played the right way that we all see it. So who's to blame there? Is that Lindsay or is that Dean McKaylee for the players that we brought in? We're not seeing it. At the end of the day, we might be winning the odd game, but I think Nick said earlier, we've won the odd game, but even in those games, we've not really been brilliant. I thought Northampton, we were very, very good. But if you look at some of the other games, it was either normally the other team would, I've criticised us as fans quite a lot to say that we always seem to say the opposition's really rubbish rather than us just being really good. But I wouldn't say that we've put in a brilliant performance yet this season. Northampton does it for me because we were good on both sides of the ball. We were good defensively and we were good on going forward when we were able to go forward. But I think this whole hiding behind the stats thing, and it brings us nicely onto that kind of age element. I think the youngest player that played yesterday was 22. I mean, sorry, but and I think that the youngest player has played at the higher levels. So it's at the end of the day, we haven't got a young squad. That's a load of bollocks. And that was it. The person who I think it was Mark said another team that's successful with a director of football, Leyton Orient, got our very own Martin Ling. So it does work. A director of football model does work, but the problem with a director of football model is who's to blame when it starts going wrong. And my opinion, it is the director of football that's to blame when it's going wrong.
Crawley have a director of football, and look what's happened there. So, yeah, you're right. It doesn't always work. But that quote that Rich put out about Dean McKelly, and that just screams to me that we're going to become the Crew Alexandria of Wiltshire. No ambition to do anything other than making sure we're sustainable, which we all want. We do want sustainable, but we want more than that. We want to get into League One. We want to push for the Championship. And those words that Dean McKelly said, that worries me, because it's like they will not change the formation or the way we play or this statistics approach because they want to make sorry, but they want to basically we're just going to become basically a feeder club for the Championship and Premiership teams. That's what we're going to do. We're going to develop players, sell them on, make a bit of profit on them, and then that's it. And to be honest, Clem and Rob Angus need to be up front with what they expect from this club on the pitch, not just this season, but in the future. Because if we're going to go down the Crew Alexandria road of just developing footballers and then selling them on to make money and just tread water, then for me, that's not good enough for me. And that's the problem. We've had no leadership from the top explaining what they expect for this season. Because most of the fans, they expected, including myself, that we would be pushing for automatics, progression from last season. And I don't think that that's unfair for us to expect that. But we have had nothing from Rob Angus or Clem about their or Dean McKelly for what the expectations were for this season. And, you only have to look at Dean McKelly and Lindsay's attitude towards Austin before we actually signed him. It was very lukewarm. That you could tell they weren't keen on signing him, and you can tell that was Clem who wanted him there. And to me, it's all well and good saying Lindsay out, but Dean McKelly has to go. You bring in a different manager with the same director of football, it's not going to change that much. It's not going to improve that.
I'm glad Clem did what he did in terms of, because if Dean McKelly didn't want him and Lindsay didn't want him, I'm sorry, but you cannot pass up the hottest property, top free agent at the moment. He's come down. Okay, I know he's gone to Brisbane and stuff like that, but last season he was playing in the Championship. So for somebody to come down, let's forget about Brisbane, because I don't really. I think that was just really to keep him fit, like sort of thing. That was a holiday for him, really. But the fact that he's come from QPR and he's come down to League Two, I mean, he wants to be here, and apparently he had other offers and stuff like that, which I'm not surprised he has done, because I'm sure every team wants him.
All the comments flying in. It's the perfect time to just say hello and good evening, Ben. You finally finished work and can actually join us.
Yeah.
I'm sure you would have been listening in to all the positivity of the first hour or so, and ready to join in. We spent a lot of time looking at the very top end of the pitch. We've spent an hour looking at the very top end of the pitch. Let's move back a stage and talk about the midfield, because a lot of us have said on paper, and we've all been supporting football long enough to know it's not playing on paper, but on paper, our midfield options are very good. And we've said, over the course of the season, we've said Gladwin does look a lot better this year. Reed, there's question marks over. We know that. And the likelihood is he'll probably be gone in January. There's, Darcy, among others, Williams included in that as well. So I'd like to talk about why we seem to, with so many players who we perceive as being creative, not be able to create anything. But before I do that, and just a peek behind the curtain for those watching and listening in our WhatsApp chat, there was, I think, 6 consecutive messages at one point in the second half that contained the words "fucking shoot Gladwin," fucking shoot, in different arrays. And my comment, because Ben, you said this, so I'll let you start it off. My comment, I think it was to Woody, was his instincts have always been to shoot, which means he isn't playing on instinct by not taking that opportunity to shoot. And if he's not playing on instinct, he must be playing on instruction. And that, although I agree with Woody when he talks to you that Lindsay's clearly not going out there saying play with the handbrake on, don't intentionally not shoot. There is clearly something in the directive, specifically for Gladwin, that he just isn't shooting.
There was an interview a little while ago that Blaine Gladwin did. I think it may have been after the Mansfield game where this was brought up, really. And he said, in my younger days, I was quite a selfish player, and I was like, how am I going to score? When I got the ball, look up, score. He used to make these long roving runs to Gladwin, and he's quite a direct player. Now he says he's a bit more of a team player, and he says, well, what does the team need to do to score? I would like to say to Ben Gladwin, be more selfish, because he had enough shot on him. He had one of the best shots about, and he would score lots of goals. So, Ben, just get back on it. Score, he quite easily. He got hat tricks when he was back for us the first time. He's a good player. I just also wanted to skip back a little bit with the,
of course you did.
With the ownership little chat with the signing of Austin. I think it screams that something isn't right, or Clement's not happy.
So you're mimicking what Jack was saying in the chat, are you?
Yeah, his technical. Yeah, he's sort of undermined his technical director and his manager and signed someone out of his own back, which means he's probably not happy with the way things are at the moment and how things are going. Which means there possibly could be, because it is his toy set and it is his train set, that there may well be changes soon in his mind. With this Austin signing, I would be interested to see the battle between Lindsay and Austin. If Lindsay really doesn't like Austin, if Lindsay pulls rank and doesn't play him that often, or puts him on the bench and decides to play Jeff Cox.
We're making assumptions here, though. Regardless, there was a comment earlier that I liked. Charlie was in Australia while Clem was in Australia. It made sense for them to do the talk. Everyone's making these assumptions that because Lindsay wasn't in Australia doing the negotiations, he's not happy about it.
No, Austin said he didn't speak or didn't talk to Scott Lindsay at all until he had already signed. Actually, he still hadn't. He says, I'm sure it'll be fine.
That's not unusual for a director of football.
No, but that's Scott Lindsay. That's the manager. He didn't speak to his manager at all.
Yeah, but that's not unusual for a director of football.
Just to say, right, well, here's our manager. Do you want to chat to him? Oh, welcome, Charlie. This is how we want to play. You'd think that would be natural.
Yeah, but don't forget, Ben, we're in 2023 now. That might have been how things worked in 60s, 70s, 80s, maybe even 90s. But football does move on. And there's.
If I was joining a club, I want to speak to the manager.
To be fair, listen to his.
Okay, let me try this. Let me try this another way. Let me
He's
try
not the
this
manager,
another
though.
way.
Don't forget, he's not the manager; he's the head coach.
Yeah, that's a valid point. But let me try this another way.
It's the same thing. He's still in charge of the team. He's still selecting. He's still editing.
If you were to go and get a new place of employment, would you necessarily speak to, XYZ manager, or would you speak to like the HR team that do the interviews? Would you get to speak to this person before you got that job? Not necessarily.
Yeah, but it's
You're
not.
still working
We're
directly under him,
not
right?
working in an office, are we? It's a footballer, and he'll be directly working under a manager. They want a sense of a feel of the player that's going to be signing for them and playing for them. It just seems odd. In my point, look, I'm not a player. I've not worked on that sort of thing. It just seems odd that's the thing. In my opinion, I might be wrong. I might is normal, and players never talk to managers before signing. I might just be. It might be something that's completely that I don't know about. Anyway, that was what I wanted to say earlier. Concerning the midfield, your question, midfield. Our midfield's actually on paper, it's actually pretty good. It's not gelling. Personally, I think Darcy plays far too deep for someone who likes to make quite direct attacking runs. I think he's better than making those runs into the box rather than from 70 yards from goal to 40 yards from goal. I think Khan's a good player, but there's rumours that he might be off. I think Reedy will be off. I think he was awful yesterday. I thought Reedy was really bad. There was a little passage of play where both teams couldn't hold the ball more than 3 passes to each other. Reedy was more culpable than anyone. I think he was terrible yesterday. I think the move for him was almost imminent, personally. That's in my opinion anyway. I don't know anything. But yeah, it's rather disjointed at the moment, so I think it needs bolstering. Even though on paper it's pretty good, I don't think it's right.
Mark, your views on the current midfield options?
Well, it's not good enough. If it was good enough, we'd be higher up the table and we'd have more points. It's as simple as that. I mean, Johnny Williams was great before he went to the World Cup. Since he's come back, he spent more time on his arse than doing anything effective on the pitch. Gladwin's been a bit hit and miss since he's come back from his little knock, and I'll put my hands up and say he's had a good season compared to last. Other than that, I'm not quite sure what our midfielders are offering. Ronan Darcy's not really set the world on fire. I mean, he does, a lot of running around like a headless chicken and no end product. I thought, he was going to be more effective and score more goals than he has done. I mean, the goal that he scored against Mansfield was, fantastic and will probably be on the highlights reel. But since then, he hasn't really done much. But then it's not just the midfield. It's the whole team. And a lot of the team are out of form. And it's difficult to really pinpoint where the crux of the issue is, other than the fact that we haven't taken enough shots. We've already covered that off already, and I think Austin's going to change that. But we've got players playing out of position. We've got injuries. We've got lone players outperforming our own signings. Wakeling is way off the boil. I mean, he's trying to affect games as positive as he can do, and I think it's probably unfair to put too much pressure on his shoulders, bearing in mind it's his first season in professional football, and probably all got a little bit carried away very, very quickly when he scored, sort of 4 or 5 goals fairly quickly into the season, and then gave him a much longer deal. I still think he'll come good. There's a lot of ability in that player. It's just he's struggling in a team that's struggling at the moment. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think Khan and Reed as midfielders. If we could put the two together, their best qualities, we'd have a great holding defensive midfielder. I mean, Reed last season was phenomenal. There's a reason he's probably played the majority of his career at this level. He has one good season, then goes off the boil. It seems to be a recurring theme. But I don't know whether he wanted out in the summer, and we said we weren't going to let him go until January. Who knows what the plan is there? But if we lost Reed and Khan, the argument there is, are we then going to change the shape because we don't have a holding midfielder to replace either of them with, either in the youth ranks of any note? Or with enough experience for such a key position within the team, so we'd have to go out and recruit there? Or are we genuinely going to change the shape and the formation in this window? I mean, we've got more strikers than we should could shake a stick at. Then you could make a good argument that we do need to be playing 2 up front to get the best out of what we have. So if we're going to up front, we're either going to go 4-4-2 or more likely 3-5-2. So if we're going to go back to 3-5-2, then we've got to go back to what Rich was saying with the wingers argument. Roberts will need to get to play more and prove his worth, and we'll need to go out and recruit somebody who can actually put the ball in the fucking box for somebody to score.
Yep.
It's as simple as that. But yeah, it's tough. I'd like to pinpoint and say that the midfield is a problem. Earlier in the season, I was thinking it was the real problem area, and I think we'd all maybe, and I use the word alluded because it hasn't been used yet in tonight's show, about it not quite having that, I don't know, dynamic, or there was something missing, but it's gone far beyond that now, and I don't think we could just say that the midfield in isolation is the issue.
Rich and Woody, I'd be interested in your thoughts on the midfield as well in just a second. But Si, if I can ask you, I know we're all sat here saying that we played really, really badly yesterday. But from your perspective, was there anyone in the Swindon kit that you looked at and thought, okay, they're not playing great, but there's clearly a good player there?
Well, like I said, the only one that really springs to mind is your goalkeeper. You don't stand out when you take away from that game and go, yeah, if we would sign anybody from that squad yesterday who would improve our team, who would it be? And he's the only one. Yeah. Whereas, you look at yours like, what is going on? And to be fair, going to the Charlie Austin thing, we talked about him on the way up to the game, almost hoping he would play, because obviously that's where all the pressure would be on him. Everybody looking towards him to do everything. We just thought, his first game, he tried too hard, we'd probably get away with it. So we weren't too worried about him playing. But nobody stood out to be able to battle to get into our team, and that's saying something.
Okay. Go on then, Rich, from your perspective on the creativity debate, do you think that the players we have it in them, they're just not performing to the level, or am I overestimating their abilities?
No, I do think in the team, like if you look at it, I mean, obviously, Khan, I personally think he needs to be playing further up the pitch because he is obviously comfortable on the ball. He can take players on.
But a liability defensively.
He is in some ways, but he's getting better at playing that role. And I think we saw that because it was Northampton. He played there against Northampton, didn't he?
He's still left us exposed a few times,
he
though.
Did.
No.
And I don't think it's his.
Not that that's his fault, because he's not used to playing that position.
Exactly.
But he's not a defensive midfielder. I know he's been playing well there, but he does need to be further up.
No, Craig. I mean, I'm not saying he's been amazing there. He hasn't, but he's done what he's had to do, like sort of thing like that. But and he is improving in that position. Do I think he should be playing in that position? No, I don't think he should be. I think he should be playing further up the pitch because I think he would offer us more going up the pitch. But you also look at players like Gladwin. Like Gladwin was actually trying to set some things up yesterday. I mean, he's got a very unorthodox way of doing it, but we've obviously seen that all his time here at Swindon Town. And, we know he's got that in his locker to set up, but also to try and score some goals from outside the area as well, because that's where his power is. Also looking at Darcy, I mean, Darcy, whenever he plays, he runs his bloody socks off, whether or not he's playing right back, centre mid, centre attacking mid, centre defensive mid, wherever he is put, he will always do a job. I think his most effective is also in the attacking side of our midfield because he can run at players again. And again, he's another one that can shoot from long range to be given the opportunities. And why we're not exposing that, I think their movement is fantastic as well. I mean, Gladwin's has improved this season. Obviously, we're not expecting him to do a lot of that. But also at the same time, though, you look at that midfield, and we all said it at the start of the season, and obviously Johnny Williams, of course, as well, but we don't need to really go into that because we know what Johnny Williams can offer.
Although he was particularly poor yesterday.
Yeah, of course he was. And, you can't expect every player to have, to be consistent and having a great game every game, like sort of thing. Every player is going to have some kind of dip, and especially if you've been off at the World Cup for a month and not even playing, you'd expect some sort of rustiness. But I think in terms of that midfield we had, obviously we didn't know an awful lot about Ronan Darcy at the start of the season, but I think we all would have taken it. I know a lot of people were given a lot of criticism to Ben Gladwin, but I saw him a few times in pre-season. I thought, wow, he could offer us something completely different this year. He looked amazing. He looked like he'd lost a lot of weight. He didn't look like the player that he was last season. In fact, he's gotten a lot better, and we are seeing signs of when he did play for us in 2014, 2015. So, you know, I don't. A lot of people are saying that we need to improve that. Personally, for me, I think it's just down to who we actually start and who we bring in as players, as game changers. And this is where I think where Lindsay needs to sort this out, because I don't personally think that's the area we need to strengthen. Wingers and maybe a centre back and definitely a left back as well, because I feel as if that's where we're struggling a little bit. But in the middle of the park, he just needs to get it right. I think he's got probably the best 5 or 6 midfielders in that league.
Nick, Ned, just before I hand over to Woody, very quickly, if the online rumours are true and any reported interest from Plymouth in Khan, if I was to say to you, you can have Khan or Jeffcoat for the second half of the season, which one are you choosing? I'll start with Nick.
That's a 50-50.
Well, yes, there's 2 options. That's generally how these things work.
It's quick, Fifey. I'll give you that one.
Yeah, cheers, Fifey. Throw me under the bus. As the way he's been playing, I don't think it's all his fault. I'd send Jepcott back.
Okay. Ned?
Neither. Fuck it. Let's start again.
No, it's 50-50. You can't say that.
Oh.
He could say he doesn't want either, I suppose.
That wasn't the question.
You're being called out here, Ned. You've got to pick one.
Nick playing hardball here. I don't blame you.
Come on, Ned.
If we're playing 2 up top, then I'll keep Jeffcott. Khan's
Are we
going.
playing 2 up top?
Khan's going, so I'm not even going to entertain saying Khan. But you know, it's not a choice, is it?
For what it's worth, if it's one or the other, I would be picking Khan at this point.
What, to go?
No, to keep.
To keep.
Well, he's going, so don't worry about that.
Okay. Woody, I wanted your thoughts on the midfield before I bring Craig in on the defence.
Kind of echo a little bit what Rich said, really. I do think there's better midfielders in League Two. I think as a whole, on paper, we probably do have the best midfield as a whole, if they're played in the right way. I think, the more and more we've spoken about it tonight, the more and more I'm thinking, let's just get Johnny Williams back in that 10 role, behind the front 2. But because that's when he's scoring goals. But, it's difficult because we're so, and I think Mark used the phrase in the chat earlier.
Here's Liam.
I love that you're all doing an impression of Matt by getting distracted by the comments. You should be used to this by now.
I can't even repeat why I was distracted in case we have junior Spotify listeners. All
of our Spotify stuff gets marked up for 18 plus just in case.
Okay. But yeah, so like Mark said earlier, we're so, even our midfield, in fact, our midfield, probably the biggest culprits, are so Marmite at the moment. We're so kind of like, Gladwin is a different player when he's on his game, but when he's not having a good game, he's back to the Gladwin we had last season. Reed, we all spoken about Reed already. Khan, this is going to sound controversial, compared to some others, but I'm still on the fence with Khan. I still don't. I think if we do sell him, which sounds like we are, I don't think he's going to be a huge loss. He's got a good style of play when he's got on the ball and he drives forward, but he's not being played in a system that allows him to drive forward. And then we got, who else we got? Darcy. Darcy's just disappeared the last few games. I don't know what, that player that I saw, he's the Darcy I saw at Malksham. The Malksham game where I said that Wakeling was going to be the next Jerry Yates. And I went, who the hell is that guy with long hair in the middle? Because he is trash. That is what Darcy is bringing to me at the moment, the Malcolm vibes. But yeah, so I mean, on paper they should be great, but as you've said, Fifey, the game's not played on paper. So you know they should be good. And it brings me back to that point. We spoke so many times tonight about wingers putting crosses in. Midfield is equally their responsibility to set up strikers and create opportunities.
Yep.
And the more I think about it, the more I'm thinking that's what we've not done this season. How many times can we sit there and say we've scored a through ball? The best through ball that I've seen so far really was the one from Shade to Johnny Williams before Shade scored. You know, so it's you know, and it makes me think even more because that's where Charlie's going to want the ball. He's going to want the ball to his feet or just a little bit in front of him. Yeah. So are they doing their job? But then you know, I think bring Williams back into that 10 role so he can be that creative player that links it all up together. And I think the more I speak about it, the more I'm convinced that we have to have that diamond shape in the middle, or play some sort of 4-2-3-1 type thing. But yeah, it's I mean 4-2-3-1 or 4-1-3-2 are my two favourite formations. So I'd much rather see us playing them. But it's yeah, I think the midfield. We've got a good midfield, but are they not playing well because of the way that we're playing, or are they just really Marmite players? The reason they're in League Two is because they're not consistent. They're not they're not going to give us 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 every week. You know, Reed arguably last year was a 7 out of 10 every week. This year, I'd say he's barely a 5 out of 10 every time he plays. You know, so it's yeah, I think consistency is the biggest problem. But if they were ultra consistent, if all 4 of our or 5 of our main midfielders that are used were consistent, they wouldn't be League Two. Because that, I'll tell you what that is, that's Jack Payne. Yeah. Because, you know, if they were consistent every week, like Jack Payne was, they wouldn't be in League Two. So I think we do have to have a bit of a realistic edge on that.
Ned, you wanted to say something quickly? So quickly that he can't unmute himself?
You know, at the start of the season when we signed a lot of these players, you know, it was said by, you know, for example, like Liam said, oh,
Liam said Darcy will be player of the season.
Exactly. Liam,
No question.
you know, and then also Rotherham fans said, oh, McDonald is going to be quality for you guys. And it just seemed like, you know, bar maybe 2 or 3, everyone thought, oh, this player is going to be shit hot for you guys. And it's no coincidence that none of them are performing. It's no coincidence. I just wanted to say that.
Liam saying he stands by it. Let's move further back one place then, Craig. Defensively, we've said consistently, although we've had injuries and absentees throughout, particularly at centre-back this season, we actually look okay defensively, generally speaking. We're not, you know, we don't concede a lot of goals. It's not often we're getting 3, 4, 5 put past us. And we'll come on to Bryn in that respect very shortly. But a point that me and Si were talking about earlier, their strikers did make McDonald and FBT look certainly not at their game and borderline average yesterday, didn't they? At least in my opinion.
Yeah, it was like they were a totally different partnership to the one against Northampton. I said on last week that was the best I'd seen McDonald play this season against Northampton, and him and Blake Tracy formed quite a solid partnership. I don't know what the hell happened with them yesterday. Yeah, we have been a bit unlucky with injuries to our defenders, but I think for me, again, going to McDonald, you know, a player, he was our marquee signing this season. Let's remember that at the beginning. We were saying, yeah, we got our leadership because all the Dion Conroy haters were loving it that we got McDonald in. Well, I'd take Dion Conroy back any day of the week, to be honest with you. You know, as Woody said, he doesn't show the leadership qualities that you expect as much as what people make him out to have. And he's not that ball playing defender. I'm sorry. And he just hasn't showed anything. That was the one good game that I've seen him play this season against Northampton. Other than that, he's been very average, and he's supposed to be our best signing this season. He should be one of the best centre-backs in this league. but he's not. He's just not suited to our style of play. And that's the thing. And it still goes back to why the hell did we recruit him in the first place? If this possession-based football is so important to us, why the hell did we recruit him? But I don't want to be seen that I'm scapegoating him. I also think we've overplayed Hutton's importance to the team, even though he's been more of an attacking. He's been more of our attacking outlet, but he had a few few assists where I think against Mansfield he put in a couple of good crosses in other games, but then other teams started to figure that out, and most of his crosses, as we know, go high in the box where we haven't
high
got
out
any
the box.
height. Or out of the box where we haven't got any height to deal with it. And we piss about with it, as we've said before, on the edge of the box, and then we're like, all right, we'll give it to Hutton, put a cross in, and then nothing happens. And I think we just became too reliant on him because he had a few good games and put in a few good crosses, and then we had no other. We ran out of ideas, which we've done. What Colchester did to us yesterday has happened time and time again. Walsall did it, Crewe did it, Wimbledon did it. All those games we drew, Gillingham, they done exactly the same thing. And it's not just I'm not just a Lindsay hate. I'm very, very adamant that Dean McKelly has to go as well. But
really, we hadn't noticed.
Yeah. But surely Lindsay and his coaching team, and partly Dean McKelly, because that's part of his job as well, looking at the stats and everything, surely they should have thought of some way to break down the team. I know I'm going away from the defensive side now, but surely they should find a way that we can break down these teams, because we know what they're going to do. Colchester, as Si said, knew exactly what to do against us, and especially when we weren't really attacking them. But yeah, I think there's problems all over the pitch, to be honest. I don't think there's a particular area you can bog it down to. Defensively, we do have problems. Left back is obviously an issue. Iandelo's not a good left back. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. I said this last week. His best position is in the centre of midfield. Mm-hmm. But left back, he's not a left back. And where's Reece Devine? He's come back from injury, but yet he's nowhere near the team. I don't even think he makes the bench. And he was another signing. He's meant to be a really good,
Reece Devine real? Is Reece Devine real? Whereas Reece,
exactly. So yeah, and I think as well we're going to have problems because Burton got smashed yesterday, didn't they, against Morecambe, and they've got one of the worst defensive records in League One. So if I was the Burton manager, I'd be looking at Blake Tracy and saying we need him. So I don't think we're going to have Blake Tracy by the end of this January transfer window, which is going to give us even more problems. Because as we said, Blake Tracy and Bryn have been our most consistent players. But just to finish off on the defensive side, we say we've got a good defence, but there's been 8 teams in this division that have conceded more goals than us. So we're not as good defensively as we think. And if you think if it wasn't for Bryn, mainly Bryn, though that stat would be a lot higher, which for a team that averages 65% possession, we're giving away so many chances to teams that they're able to score those goals against us. It's not good. And that's a fucking stat that Dean McKelly needs to look at. And also at the other end, there's 13 teams that have scored more goals than us. I know goals for and goals against don't necessarily tally with where you are in the league, but those are piss poor stats and are part of the reason why we are shit at the moment.
Nick, let's bring you in because Craig mentioned Devine. We've seen a couple of comments for Clayton. The jury's still out very much on Harry's as well. Obviously, been injured and stuff, but everyone was like, no, he should be nowhere near the team. But then his last couple of appearances before injury, people are like, actually, he's not a bad player. So is it just a case we've been unlucky to not be able to have all the options available and they're all out at the same time?
Even with that, though, I had a look through our results and we've only conceded more than 2 goals on 2 occasions. One was in the FA Cup where we got stuffed
Yeah.
4-0, and the other one was first game of the season, 3-0. We've had a lot of 2-1s, 1-0s, 0-0s. So like Craig talked about compared with other teams. I don't know how the stats stack up against other sides in the league, but I don't think defensively we are necessarily that bad compared to other teams. And yes, we've had a lot of.
Sorry, Nick. For me, it's a combination. I'm not saying that was the our main problem, but it is a combination of us not being as good as we think defensively, and also, as I said, all over the pitch. Sorry, mate.
No, that's fine. I think part of the problem is at the moment we're playing players out of position, and I think we've all raved about Blake Tracy playing at centre half, and he's done really well apart from yesterday. But he is a left back, and as we said, Livinier is playing out of position, so that doesn't help. The centre halves have chopped and changed. That doesn't help. So you don't get consistency in play. And if we're a team that's going to play out from the back through the midfield, and we need to be consistent. So. Okay. Lower league, look, shut up, will you?
That's class, Liam. Fair play.
We haven't had the consistency in playing as a defensive unit and moving the ball fast enough to get it through the midfield and up front. It's been, as we've said, all this bloody sideways football, sideways midfield, turning back, going back to the defence. And that's okay if you've got decent players who can then move it quickly and push on. But we don't do that. We're just so slow pedestrian. And I think that's our biggest problem.
No, absolutely. Ned, can we talk about something a bit more positive? Majority of us were quite critical of Bryn in the first half yesterday, but ultimately, as has been kind of suggested, he was the only player that came out of the game with any sort of praise.
Yeah, absolutely, and some quality saves. I mean, he didn't look hugely comfortable with collecting the balls from crosses. I've got to be honest, from what I saw. But
first half I've seen him play. Second half, unbelievable.
Shock, Ben, in interrupting Ned. Shocker.
Sorry, Nick, carry on. I'll shut up.
Yeah, that's all right.
Daniel's talking.
And as Craig pointed out, I think Bryn is pretty much solely responsible for saving. If we had another keeper in, I think we could be looking at about 12th right now, if I'm completely honest. I think he is quality. We've got 0% chance of signing him, which is unfortunate. But he's a quality player, and we're very, 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 very lucky to have him. I'm not sure what else I can say on him.
Rich, are you a little bit concerned he might go back, or do you think he will stay for the season? And how important is it to get proper cover for him?
Well, he won't go back. I don't think he will, unless Middlesbrough terminate Stefan's loan. I don't think he'll go back.
Plus, Middlesbrough's director of football said before Christmas that they had no plans to recall him. Sorry, Rich.
Yeah, please. I don't think Brendan will go back. Do I think we need cover for him? Well, I think Conor Brand obviously is still out injured, and I don't know when he's going to be back. Hopefully, I think he might be back soon because I think he got injured at Stockport, didn't he? And that was ages ago, wasn't it? So he might be back fairly soon, but obviously he's still a very young keeper. So I don't know how much of a chance they're going to take on him in case Bryn does get injured. Obviously, God forbid Bryn doesn't get injured, because at the moment, like everyone said, he's been our standout player. So I don't know whether or not they're still looking to maybe get cover, but personally for me, I would be probably looking at, I don't even know who I'd bring in. I genuinely don't. Maybe like an experienced goalkeeper, maybe like in their late 30s that's just tying down their career, but I don't really think that's a priority at the moment. I think there's bigger concerns out there, and I think if we are focusing on the goalkeeper sort of thing, keepers of that age, keepers at 19, 20 that haven't played a professional game, they're fearless. They're not gonna. If they're thrown into a tough situation, they're not gonna be scared or anything like that. So if we did have to throw Connor Brannan in case Bryn did get injured, I don't think you'd have an issue. Like, remember when we had Archie Matthews, for example, and he had those 2 great games that he played for us, you know, and obviously what happened to him, shame, but you know, they're fearless at that age. So I don't think we need to be worrying about that. I think we need to be focused, and I fully believe that he's going to be with us for the rest of the season. I'll be shocked if he goes back.
Okay, that's fine. Quick straw poll. Obviously, Si, you wouldn't be included in this, but who is concerned that Bryn won't be here till the end of the season? Anyone?
No.
Everyone's
The only concern that I've got is whether, because obviously he wants to be the Middlesbrough number 1.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the only concern I've got is that if he goes to a League One club during the,
I can't see them doing that.
No, they wouldn't do that. Not for a goalkeeper.
He's settled. He's settled and in form with us. If they send him to a League One club, he could end up. It could
ruining
end up
his career.
Yeah,
he won't do that.
I don't think Middlesbrough will risk it. They know that he's doing well here and he's getting tested and he's playing the brand of football
Isn't he just?
that they want. Yeah, to say the least. Yeah.
Okay, Ben, let's come back to you then. After the match, Lindsay and Gladwin did the post-match press conferences in an attempt to up the mood, at least temporarily. Although scathing, Gladwin's was quite good, wasn't it?
Oh, it was excellent. Absolutely brutally honest. I actually posted in the WhatsApp group, you know, this man should be... He sounds better than, like, Lindsay does, the way he
I believe
talks.
what you actually said
He was just
Beth Gladwin
open
should
and
be manager.
honest and direct and straight. And he said frank conversations need to be made. It was rubbish. It was no good. This is why we didn't play very well. You know, and we're going to sit together in a video room and we're just going to have it out with each other because this isn't nearly, it was rubbish. And he kept saying the words just unacceptable and not good enough. I thought it was really quite refreshing. I was like, go on, Gladys. And it's not the first time he's done it. I keep saying he's a Swindon manager and waiting. Yeah, I quite like Gladwin. I could quite like him as a player, but I think he should be skipper. But yeah, I think his interview was the best thing about the whole day concerning
Well, that's somewhat concerning. I mean, I was very, very critical of Lindsay's post-match comments. I did tweet in to BBC Wilts, which I don't normally do. And I just tried to come up with every word I could think of that they would be allowed to say. I basically wanted him to shut the fuck up. He was talking absolute bollocks. I'm bored of the same rhetoric about I'm working with a young squad, blah, blah, blah. I need to keep working with them, which I know I've already kind of asked you about, Woody, but it's comments like when he's asked, will you be knocking on the chief exec's door and asking to be backed with experienced players? And he says, no, I don't think so. And then in the next answer, he says, the squad I've got, I'm confident we may about make the playoffs. When you've made a signing like Charlie Austin, I don't think you're aiming to just about make the playoffs. There were also pictures shared afterwards, Woody, of him looking obviously quite down. Looking at body language and actual language used, do you think he's really starting to feel the pressure? Do you think he might feel he's on the way out?
Yeah, I think the problem he's got is this win-lose. And that's what the fans aren't liking. And I think he struggles with the fact that he obviously really wants to be here. You could say he's a Swindon fan, like he really wants to be here. And I think it probably is gut wrenching when you come off the Rich will know as a coach, when you have a big win, and Mark, when you have a big win one week and then your team play absolutely shite the following week, it is absolutely gut wrenching. And I think the problem is yes, I hate Lindsay's interviews. I can't remember the last one because every time we lose, it's the same excuse. And I'm sorry, but we're into the second half of the season now. You can't still be saying I'm working with this squad of players. I'm sorry, you can't still be saying that when you're in the second half of the season and he's had them for the whole season. So he comes out and said, but that could be just inexperience in front of the media. So I kind of give him a little bit of slack on that. But and I've forgotten what you asked now. What did you ask originally, Fifey?
Do you
so
think
angry.
do you think he came across in his body language and the actual language used like he knows he's under pressure?
I think every time we lose, he looks like that, and that's his problem. And I think he genuinely is. He is a coach that is not. He wouldn't be very good at motivating a team because the moment things aren't going his way, he is low in body language. He's been like that. You look back at all the games we've lost, only 7 of them or wherever it is, mind. And you look at his body language after that. It's always the same. So, but I think that's just in general. He's somebody who wants to do well, but he's just not, and he's not performing to the standards. And I think maybe now he's starting to realise, although I don't massively agree with the theory, he's starting to look at that kind of, are we 5th? Are we overachieving type thing because we've played more games than everybody else? So the way I look at it, we still had to win 10 of those games. So, but it's I think he knows, and I'd be very surprised if. I don't necessarily think he's been undermined by Clem. I don't think the rumours that are going around have gone that far, but I do reckon there was a disagreement somewhere. I genuinely do reckon there was a disagreement somewhere, which probably led to that answering that question. No, I'm not knocking on any more doors because I've got Charlie Austin coming in, and you would kind of say that kind of thing if you didn't agree with the decision in the first place, type thing. But we all know that Clem's not seen Austin for a footballing thing. He's seen it as a business opportunity. He knows he's going to sell loads of shirts. He might do us a little bit better, and he will put bums on seats. So that's Clem's thinking. But how many times does a CEO in any company make a decision that maybe 3 management lines down don't agree with? It happens quite a lot. But yeah, so I think he knows his name, but he's almost too proud to resign. One thing's for sure, he is not resigning. I can almost guarantee that. He will never resign. And I agree. I think it was Richard said it earlier. Is him going the right thing? Probably yes, if we get a good replacement in. Will he go? I don't think he will. I genuinely don't think he'll go. I don't think we'll sack him over.
Si, on that note, can I just quickly ask you, with all respect intended, you're where you are in the table. Do you get the same sort of rhetoric after defeats? It's the same excuses every time, or is there a bit more detail, a bit more of an impassioned response? When obviously you wouldn't have heard Lindsay's interview, but just generally from your perspective, what's the sort of post-match comments, particularly after defeats?
See, ours are always quite positive.
Okay.
I swear it's whatever Matt Broomfield puts his cornflakes in the morning, it's got to be some legal substance. But it's always, you can always find a positive in everything in regards to, okay, we didn't play very well, but, we can show the improvement in this area. We've done this. We're working on this. I think, to be fair to the fans, you can actually see there is an improvement in play. Some of the games we've lost have been by the odd goal where something hasn't gone our way or we've switched off. Bar Wimbledon at home, most of the games we've lost under him so far have been either a bad refereeing decision, which I know everyone blames for, get jumps on, or errors that have been slight that could be worked upon. So yes, we always have quite good. I think Broomfield comes out quite positive after every game. He seems an all-round positive person. Whether we've won or lost, his kind of demeanour, his attitude is very much the same. I'll do the best I can.
It sounds like so that he actually comes up with solutions to problems, whereas Lindsay says things, we need more guile, more know-how, more swagger. What the fuck does that mean? Nothing.
So to be fair, obviously not fair to Lindsay, but I've heard some of his comments from what he said after the game, and he reminded me of a bit of a Sunday League manager who's watched Match Today the night before, is doing his team talk that morning, and now has to use all these buzzwords that he's heard, has not got a clue what they mean, or what they mean in a footballing sense, but it sounds like he should be saying them. That's where it gets it from.
You've not heard Wazza do a Sunday League match team talk. those were a treat.
Ben, you wanted to say something on Lindsay?
Yeah, no, just going a little
Let
while.
me guess, Lindsay Howe.
No, not that at all. It was just something you picked up upon when you said mentioned about the age. I did get this from another podcast, but he uses this team as a young team as an excuse a lot during a defeat. And it was mentioned on the podcast that this is absolute bollocks because the team up top of the league and probably about 8 wins away from promotion have exactly the same team with the average age of our team in Lane Orient. So they're doing all right with a young team, and we've got enough experience to be doing a lot better than we are. So it's just an excuse, which obviously we're going back a few pages, which is why I wanted to say it at the time. But yeah, I just wanted to make that point that it's absolute bollocks when Lindsay brings up the age of the squad because that's no excuse.
Maybe his missus ran off with a young footballer once who's like really got a thing against them, so he just like blames them for everything.
No, he loves young footballers. He gets them all in.
That's a touchy subject.
Yeah, I wouldn't comment on his missus. Yeah, she passed away, didn't she?
Oh yeah.
Maybe a bit sensitive there.
Yeah.
Well, sorry wasn't to know that.
I was going to say, I didn't know that.
I'm expecting a written apology.
Okay, let me go around the group and Sai, I'll phrase it slightly differently for you because I am interested as you've taken the time and you've stuck with us for the whole 2 hours as well. Starting with you guys, we obviously don't have a game because we sacrificed the cup competitions for no reason other than being absolutely fucking stupid. And I'm still really angry about our lack of interest in doing anything in the cups.
Yep.
So our next game is Grimsby at home in the league on the 14th, which all the podcasts associated with Swindon Town are really trying to promote to the fans. Let's come to this one. It should be Charlie's debut. Let's really pack it out and see what happens. By the time we play Grimsby, my question to you all is, will Lindsay still be in charge? And will we have made any additions? I did see Jasper commented and he also tweeted us about Tomlinson, etc., being a great addition on top of things we've said. So, Craig, I'll start with you. Will we have any additions? And will Lindsay still be in charge at Grimsby?
We'll certainly have some additions, or I hope so. But I think, as I think Rich and Woody was saying, unless he resigns, I think that the management are just going to stick with Lindsay. I can't see. I wouldn't be too fussed if he went or not. To be honest, if they did sack him, then that's I'm not going to be too disappointed in that. But I think if it was going to happen, it would have happened today. Or maybe tomorrow, because by the time it gets to Grimsby, it's like 2 weeks gone. So 2 weeks into the transfer window, sorry. So I think Lindsay will still be in place. Maybe we'll have 1 or 2 new signings, but who knows?
Okay, Mark?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Are we going to sign any new players? Yeah, I think we will do, but I don't think we're going to see much in the early part of the window. I think it'll be last minute and more than likely transfer deadline day because, keeping the costs down. I just want to rewind just quickly on Scott Lindsay. Will he be sacked? I don't think he will do. And I echo Woody's point. I don't think he'll resign either. I think, he'll dig his heels in and see where the season gets him. But there's 2 salient points. The first is we go back to how the style of play that we were promised at the very start of the season. And I have to keep harking back to that because it's never been evident, aside from maybe Mansfield, which is a standout game. This fast-flowing attacking football hasn't materialised. Secondly, Scott Lindsay doesn't do himself any favours. 1 minute he's out fist-bumping the fans and geeing them up and everything's fine. The next minute, he's completely fucking ignoring the fan base. Won't say anything to anybody. He's just like, well, which side of this coin, which part of this journey do you want us to be on, Scott? Because it's very easy as fans. You're either with the manager or you're against them. And once the fans are against you, you're on borrowed time. So I hasten to add that January is such a key month for the club, not only in terms of the ins and outs, but in terms of, and Charlie Austin's imminent second debut. But do they really want us to galvanise the support to have a successful season? If they do, they've got to have a hard, look at themselves and work out how about keeping the fan base on side. Because if they get that wrong, it's all going to go horribly wrong very, very quickly, regardless of what we do.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Nick?
I think he might be gone.
Okay.
I think Clem's got to make some hard decisions.
Yep.
And if it's not done in the next couple of days, and then yes, he will stay. But I think he might be gone in the next couple of days. And then once that happens, then you need to obviously have somebody to bring in before you start signing players. Or you should have somebody in before you start signing players, but we don't seem to work like that. But I actually think he'll be gone.
Sorry, Fifey. One thing I forgot to mention when regards to Lindsay, it also depends on how long his contract is, which nobody seems to know how long he is signed for the club for. I've looked back at the club website from when he signed. I've looked at the adverts, the advert website and everything. There's no mention of how long he's on. If he's on a Luke Williams 5-year fucking deal, then no chance is he going to get sacked. If he's on like a year deal with an extension, then maybe. But it's a bit odd, don't you think, that for a manager, we don't know how long he's contracted to the club. Maybe I could be proved wrong with that. Maybe I've missed that totally, but I haven't seen how long he's contracted to the club. And I think that would be key whether he gets sacked, because obviously, I guess depending on what clauses they've put in, it would cost them a lot of money to sack him.
I'm not suggesting they know where to look, but the minute you said that, both Woody and Rich picked up their mobiles. Woody, on the question of will he still be here for Grimsby and will there be any further additions?
I think he will still be here for Grimsby. I echo Craig's comments. I do worry that he is on probably a 3-year contract minimum. He might not be, though. He might be on a performance-based contract. Who knows? But what I would like to be happening is this week there's a serious sit-down between Clem, Rob, Sandra D. McKaylee, fucking tea lady, whatever, and they sit there and go, right, something's not good. So we need to work out what's going wrong. You've now got 2 weeks. We're going to help you with the transfers. You need to improve it. January is a big month. I think because we've got a director of football, it isn't going to be a case of bringing in a new manager who's going to pick our transfers. I think whoever D. McKaylee's not going to go anywhere. Let's put it that way. Whoever D. McKaylee buys, whatever manager is going to have to deal with them. What's that noise?
Don't know.
He's in the hospital.
Someone...
He's probably around the cuckoo clock in the room I'm in, to be fair.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Not that crazy. But yeah, I think that will be the. So I genuinely believe there will be some sort of in-depth conversations this week happening between the leadership team. And I do think he'll have at least, I don't think he's going at all this season, but if he is going to go, it won't be until the end of January, in my opinion. But there, what should be happening is serious conversations saying, you're going to be, this is what we're going to give you. You need to work out what's going wrong, because we win loss. It's the most mid-table we want to be. We don't want to be mid-table. But equally, Craig mentioned it earlier, the club needs to come out and tell us what our ambitions are this year. The manager, regardless of how negative he was, he has said he thinks he's got a playoff build inside. I think Clem's paying for Austin out of his bloody back pocket or some rigged company through his company expenses. So I think either way, there needs to be something that's said between them if Lindsay's to keep his job. He thinks he's got a good enough squad. He will need to add to it. So I think the leadership board will almost launch their own ultimatum against him for the rest of January.
Okay. Ned?
I think there will be some players coming in. I think I've heard murmurings of quite a busy month, so I imagine it would be spread across the month. I can't imagine it will be at the end. And I think Lindsay will be at the end of the season regardless. So
Okay.
that's my feelings.
Rich?
Yes and yes.
Just that simple. Ben?
Yeah, I think. Firstly, I think there must be a clause in Lindsay's contract because he has no experience. And just in case he is that dreadful, there must be a sort of get out for the club. So I do think there'll probably be, if we do need to get rid of him, we will do. I think he'll still be here if he's not sat for the next couple of days. But Grimsby's massive for him. If we lose on Charlie Austin's big day and that goes all toxic and everyone starts booing, then there'll be a lot of pressure on him to be sacked. So I think Grimsby's huge for him. I think he possibly will be here until that day. Signings-wise, I think we'll know what's happening with the loans. I think Jeff Cott will be cleared up whichever way by then. I think Fraser Blake-Tracy will be cleared up whichever way by then. New players in, I'm not too sure about. Hopefully we'll see another left-back. We need one. But I think that's probably the only position we might get in before then. I think everything else will be quite late in the day. Unless we are doing some sort of need immediate replacement, say like for Reedy or Khan. So I think Lindsay will still be here, but I think D-Day is Grimsby. If he wins and Swindon win and Austin scores, then I think he's just secured himself an extra month or two.
I think
If we
I
lose,
think he will win, Ben. I
pressure.
think he will win every time we have this type of game. Like Northampton was one of those games. He manages to.
It's the same with Sutton as well. We were ready to 9-0 out against Sutton, and he pulled it off, and we won.
No, absolutely.
Woody, I hope what you said isn't right. That Clem's paying him through his company because we'll end up in Southern League South or what's it called, National League South. Otherwise,
I say in jest. I know nothing.
Si, from your perspective, you do have a game at the weekend. So the question is, how do you see that going? And are you expecting a busy January window?
Yeah. I'm not too sure how the window's going to go. There's a few players we need to bring in. We've got quite a big squad. We've thinned out our loan players already. So the gaps there. I think we'll bring in maybe 2 or 3. Strengthen. If we are going to keep playing wing back, strengthen there. Maybe an attacking midfielder and maybe another striker. And Saturday, Harrogate away. It's one of these games where if we play like we did against you guys, we'll get something. If we play like the other cultures team we've played in the season, we've got no chance. So we're so Jekyll and Hyde. So yeah, it depends what team gets off the bus, really.
Okay. I'd like to thank you as always for taking time out of your evening to spend a good 2 hours with us and listening to us bleed on. It's a point that's made on other podcasts. I'm interested from your perspective, as someone who is, unfortunately for you, supporting a club further down the league table, are you surprised to hear fans of a club sitting in sixth talking so negatively about everything?
No, because I think especially when it's listening to you guys, because you know between the weeds and you're not just looking at, oh yeah, we are sixth, everything's rosy. It's not just what's going on right now, it's what's going to go on 2 weeks' time, 3 weeks' time, a month, 2 months, 3 months' time. And that's what I think a lot of people don't tend to see from the outside. So, and to be fair, if he was my manager, the way he looks on the touchline, the way he talks at times, I'd rather be mid-table with an up-and-coming manager than sitting rose in the playoffs with, well, Hayden Mullins' brother.
Well, again, we really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. This has been a fairly warts and all, but very negative tone episode of Fools Rush In. I do have one thing before we finish, but a final thought, if I can, to just try and give not necessarily a positive spin on it, but just something to think about.
So, sorry, Fifey, before you do the positive thing, can I just say one more negative? I did ask earlier, but when it comes to Dean McKelly, right, he has gotten away with a lot, to be fair, and Scott Lindsay has taken the majority of the flack, which I don't think is fair. I think he should take a fair proportion of it, Lindsay, don't get me wrong, and I'm not trying to give him a free pass, but
he's not getting the best out of what he's got.
No, but Dean McKelly is, he's basically hidden behind, and Lindsay's been like cannon fodder, really. And Dean McKelly needs to wake up and smell the fucking spreadsheet at the end of the day. The recruitment hasn't been good enough. He recruited Lindsay as well. That has not been good enough. And I want him gone. I want him fucking gone. I know, like what he said, he probably won't be going, but I don't think he's good enough. Unless he pulls something out of the hat this transfer window, I can see our season being a complete dud, which after last season will be extremely disappointing. But yeah.
It's unacceptable.
Yeah, it is unacceptable. But getting rid of Lindsay, if it does happen, that's not going to solve the problem. Getting in any other manager isn't going to solve the problem unless they solve the problem that is the director of football, technical director, whatever you want to fucking call it, because he has just been a huge disappointment this season. Sorry, that was my bit over. I just wanted to say that. Sounds like a bookie.
That's absolutely fine. My one thought for people to consider, and you might say it's bollocks, but factually, it is accurate. Regardless of how many games we've played compared to everyone else, at time of recording, we are in a playoff position, and that's without anything that resembles form or consistency. So just imagine what we can achieve if we were to find form and consistency. So it's just something to consider. Before we do go, as always, we are happy to highlight the good being done by fellow Swindon fans. And in amongst all the news of Austin and then the shambles yesterday, for want of a better phrase, I do fear that this may have escaped the attention of a large section of supporters. And it's just work being done by Debs, who we've highlighted stuff for before, and also by Dean. And they're on about, so in case that's not, I don't know how big that's coming up on people's various devices. So it's just a message went out to say, hi, everyone. We're sure all STFC fans have seen what Blackpool are doing in the community with regard to a warm room for their local community to use. It's amazing, isn't it? Deb has been having chats with Clem, Rob and Caroline at the club about us setting one up. Times are tough for so many people, and a warm space where they can get a hot drink, some soup and somewhere safe for a few hours is very needed in our town. The awesome football in the community team already do a similar job on a Wednesday, and so they're looking for volunteers for Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, obviously not match days. If anyone has any free time, please drop either Debs or Dean a DM. They're thinking of just opening late afternoons for 2 to 3 hours. The ability to open one is down to getting enough volunteers to run it. So if anyone is able to volunteer, please get in touch with Debs or Dean, because it would be amazing if we could follow the example of Blackpool and sort one in the local community here as well. That's our final thing for today. Ben's already gone. He doesn't like the charitable bit. He only wants to have his opinion and then he sods off. Si, thank you again for taking time out of your evening. From Craig, from the returning Mark, delighted to have you back, pal. From Ned, from Matt, from Woody, and from Nick. Ben's back as well. Thank you very much for the last couple of hours. There's been some amazing comments in the live chat as well as tweets on Twitter. We appreciate each and every one of them. Thank you very much. From Fools Rush In, good night.
Take my hand, take my whole life too, but I can't help falling in love.